Yeah, so let's talk about the Suicide Squad. So probably right now everybody's kind of wondering, is it good? Is it bad? Is it worse than Batman v Superman? Is it better than Batman v Superman? How does it stack up? I gotta know. You're tearing me apart. Tell me. Well, I'm about to tell you right now that this movie is actually pretty fucking awesome. The thing about this movie is that everybody kind of complained about Batman v Superman kind of having too much, darkness or whatever. I didn't really care, but too much darkness and not enough humor. Well, congratulations, assholes. Everybody's going to get enough, darkness. That's not an insult. Darkness and humor all kind of combined together, and I think it does a good enough job kind of combining the two without like sacrificing or like juggling, the tone pretty much. So I think that was actually quite good, and that's really what worked. Now, granted, this movie is a very good movie, but I feel like sometimes it feels like a great movie, particularly because of the next positive, and that being the chemistry. Now, granted, the chemistry is more on fire in this movie than fucking Diablo's hands. Now, granted, everybody works very well together. From Margot Robbie, which does a very good job with her Brooklyn accent or whatever it may be, goes in and out. Sometimes seems a little bit forced, but Harley Quinn is supposed to be a little annoying, so we'll let that one slide. Will Smith, he's actually really good in the movie. Now, granted, Will Smith is playing Will Smith. Now, granted, he kind of seems like a little bit different with the costume, but he's still Will Smith. Let's not really confuse that. Jared Leto, he's in the movie for a few minutes, not very long, so don't blink. Don't blink. He's in there for a bit, but not that much for the most part. But that's the thing about Jared Leto's Joker. I feel like it's going to kind of divide people. And I'm not joking. I mean more than Eisenberg just in general. Because I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, what the fuck was that? That's not Joker. But you got to realize that this is kind of like a comic book adaptation. There's different types of interpretation by different, writers or whatever it may be. So this is just a different interpretation. But I would definitely give it an A for ambition. That's all I can say. An A for ambition. The rest of the cast actually do a fantastic job. Croc, Captain Boomerang. Shout out to Jai Courtney. Does a fantastic job. We'll give him props. The chick that plays Katana, Amanda Waller, which looks like she could probably crush your balls. That's how badass she kind of seems, pretty much. Rick Flag, everybody else kind of does a fantastic job. Everybody's pretty good. Now, granted, the weakest part of this movie manages to be kind of like the villain. Now, granted, the story is kind of the weakest part also, just in general, but I feel like I really didn't care about the situations in the movie. I cared about the characters in the situation, so I guess that kind of balanced it out a little bit more. So that's personally what I just enjoy for the most part. Now, overall, the villain, like I said, is not really spectacular, and neither is the story, but like I said, it's the characters per se and their interactions that really make this thing work. Now, granted, David Ayer is a pretty good director in this thing, and I think his direction is actually quite good. Now, granted, sometimes I do feel like the pacing of the movie is a little off, because at first it kind of set up all this shit, and then it takes a little bit of time, does get a little slow, maybe rushes a bit here and there, but for the most part, it's a very well-paced film that's very fun and energetic, and it's very funny. Now, the humor itself can sometimes be a little bit corny, but for the most part, I did laugh, and it kind of reminded me a lot of like Deadpool. It's like Deadpool almost mixed with like The Dirty Dozen, maybe Ocean's 11, and Escape from New York, and that seems like a weird mesh, but who cares? It's still fun. Now, overall, like I said, DC, I feel like they got, not their shit together, but I feel like they did a really good job at putting this movie out. And props to David Ayer. I think they really did a good enough job. The Flash cameo, yes, that's not a spoiler. Come on, you heard it by now. But the Flash cameo is actually quite good, and everything kind of works, and it feels fun. Now, granted, it's not going to break superhero, it's not going to break superhero ground because it feels kind of similar. But I definitely feel like you might see more villain, focus points of superhero movies for the most part, because I feel like this one kind of showed that it actually does work. Is it perfect? No, but it's a pretty fucking good movie, and it's actually quite fun, and I feel like everybody would get a lot more enjoyment out of it, especially because it's in the summertime. If you kind of felt a little bit down and out by like Batman v Superman, this one is more like a very energetic, shot of cocaine, while Batman v Superman was maybe, not, I guess, for some people. But overall, I think I really did enjoy Suicide Squad. As I said, those are my positives and negatives. Everything I feel like just kind of works for me personally, except kind of the pacing, the villain, and slightly the story. But also one thing that I really did like is that they actually called it the Suicide Squad, right? This very quickly is that they actually make somebody die. I'm not going to say who, but I'm glad they actually put some type of, dire situation for these characters to be in. Somebody actually does kind of bite the bucket, because calling Suicide Squad nobody dies is kind of shitty. Batman cameo is pretty fucking awesome, but like I said, Jared Leto, Margot Robbie, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, those kind of the standouts. Killer Croc was quite cool also, but I definitely think you're going to get your money's worth. And if you kind of felt sad about Batman v Superman, I think this might uplift your spirits. But if you love Batman v Superman, which I actually really did like, then I feel like you might even like this even more, which is actually quite good. But let's all join together. Let's clap it up. This is actually a pretty good movie. You might enjoy it, you might not. I don't care. But it's your wallet. Do what you want. Comment, subscribe, and like. I'm Chris Smith. Help me by subscribing. Signing out.